Welcome to episode 2.5 of The Quest to Get Good, where I discuss what I was doing at the end of Dragonflight Season 1, as well as where episode 3 is. First off, if the thumbnail and the art piece in the background isn't clear, I did in fact get 1800 on my Fury Warrior in Solo Shuffle. Not only that, but I got 1800 in 3 other classes as well. The reason I haven't made a video about it is, well, I was making a video about it. But then upon reviewing the recordings, I noticed that the reason I did hit 1800 wasn't so much my own skill as it was luck. I kept getting placed against fresh players who had done just a bit too well in their placement games. I wound up going 1-5 or 0-6 in their battles against me. It wasn't really a fair fight, and I didn't really want to make a video showcasing how much I can wreck noobs, so I threw out my first script and went about writing another. While working on the second script, Blizz announced the release date of 10.1, which was a lot sooner than I would have liked. While I'm sure many people are happy with Dragonflight's rapid patch cadence, I'm very much a long patch enjoyer. Maybe not Shadowlands long, but somewhere in between. So I panicked a little. I decided to start PvPing on my lock while I worked on the episode. The Warlock set was the one set I really wanted, and I didn't want to risk missing it, as I was trying to get this video out while also wrestling with what I'm pretty sure is undiagnosed ADHD. The idea was that I'd get used to playing my lock while not recording as I edited the warrior portions of the video, and then start recording the warlock parts once I got skilled enough to start climbing. Unfortunately, I found that I couldn't edit and PvP simultaneously because my computer couldn't handle WoW, DaVinci Resolve, and OBS open at the same time. I have since resolved this issue by doubling my RAM from 16GB to 32GB. At least I hope so. I haven't actually tested it thoroughly yet. So I wound up just getting 1800 on my lock without recording anything. It went a lot faster than I expected. It helped that demo locks were basically the anti-pally class in the pally meta, with amplified curse of weakness among other tools. I learned a lot about defensive cycling and kiting with portals. In fact, my demo lock was my one character that had the least amount of rounds by the end. But that kind of threw a wrench into my plan for the second script. While trying to figure out the next edition of my script, I decided to start working on my priest, which was my second favorite set out of the lot and also one I really wanted. I actually tried out healing as disc for a bit, but the last time I played disc was in Legion for the Mage Tower appearance, so it didn't go so well, and I ended up deciding to go Shadow. One thing I should note about me playing priest is that it isn't really a class I play. This character is probably one of the oldest I have, being around since at least Wrath, but I never really played her much. She just kind of exists on my character screen, and while I leveled her every expansion, I never really did endgame content with her, so practically speaking, this class was entirely new to me. I had just started playing around with Shadow, and was still in the process of learning the rotation when disaster struck. I got sick. At this point, with the end of the season fast approaching, and me still needing to finish up Keystone Hero on my Blood Death Knight, as well as get 1800 on as many toons as I could manage, losing almost an entire week to being sick really put me in panic mode. So I threw out any plans of a pre-10.1 episode 3. As I said, I don't play priest often, and I didn't want to try learning a whole new class while sick, so I decided to try an easier class, one I was actually familiar with, Beastmaster Hunter. I sucked at first, even with a much simpler class. Being at 50% brain capacity made things difficult. However, I did try out some fun ideas and learn some new tricks. One idea I tried was the idea of a bait pet, where you make your main pet something small and less noticeable, while your off pet is something large and flashy which grabs the attention of the enemy and hopefully their DPS. My main pet was a small porcupine I named Pokerface, while my bait pet was a larger mall rat I named Nathanos. I guess more people like Nathanos than I thought because it didn't really work. The other thing that I learned that was actually useful was the use of focus macros and CC chaining. After I grasped that, and the proper methods of kiting melee, I rose up pretty steadily. I still wasn't that great though and stagnated for a while around 16 to 1700. However, eventually I managed to get above 1700. My last 2 games that actually got me to 1800 were rather interesting. I was grouped with a mage and a monk. I don't know what happened, but for some reason the mage hated the monk and would throw the game whenever they grouped with them. I'm talking stripping naked and standing in the middle of the arena. I think I went 2-4 that game, but my MMR must have been high enough that I actually gained rating. I thought that was weird and reported the mage for griefing, and then queued again. The queue popped instantly, which was unusual for a DPS class, but then I wondered if I was going to be placed against the same people. I don't think the entire set of combatants was the same, but both the mage and the monk from the last game were there, and just like last time, the mage purposely threw their games with the monk. This gave me enough wins to get to 1800. In a way, I feel a bit cheated out of the experience, but I took it and moved on. Finally, at this point, I had recovered enough to try out Priest again. As I said, I wasn't really used to playing Priest, so I was basically trying to get to 1800 with a brand new class I barely knew how to play under a time crunch. But man, that preset was cool, and I wanted it. First thing I learned was that Shadow Priest played a lot different than Demolock. I had no pets to DPS for me when I was being focused, and less defensives. However, I did find that Shadow Priest was surprisingly bulky and I could survive being beat on if I used my defensives right. The main thing holding me back for a long time was simply getting my DPS rotation and burst out, and being able to keep the damage up even while I was being focused. Once I figured that out, I slowly began to climb, especially once I integrated what I had learned with focus CC chaining from my hunter. I actually got sick again during this, but the symptoms were a lot less severe, and it's entirely possible it might have just been allergies. You know when you aren't quite sure when you have a cold or allergies, you go look up the symptoms only to be presented with a Venn diagram? Well, I had all the symptoms shared by both and none of the ones unique to either. I actually use this as an excuse to call in sick to work and continue PvPing, which I don't recommend people do, but it was the kind of symptoms that I couldn't really deal with at work anyways, so I just took the opportunity. Oh yeah, and while all this was happening, I did get Keystone Hero on my Blood Death Night. At one point, in the final week, I actually lost like 200 to 300 rating in one day, which was rather disheartening. But I stuck to it, and I managed to climb back up, and after many trials, I managed to hit 1800 the Saturday before the end of the season. I was so hyped about my victory that I actually considered spending the last 3 days trying to get 1800 on yet another class, but decided it was probably not the best idea, and chose to just unwind instead. So now with all that over, where is episode 3, you might ask? Well, 10.1 came out, and as much fun as I was having in PvP, I am a casual questing scrub at heart, so I've mainly been doing open world PvE activities for the past few months, as well as getting Keystone Hero on my Resto Shaman. Also grinding honor on 4 characters, because for some reason I thought honor reset between seasons, so I spent it all instead of saving it for new PvP gear. Whoops! I did finally get together a script for the 3rd episode, which by the way is going to be a noob's guide to 1800 in Solo Shuffle, and I have actually recorded about 80% of the lines, I just need footage to go along with it. So after this video goes up, I'm going to be spending the next few weeks PvPing, collecting all the recordings I need and editing them together. And this time, since I've doubled my RAM, I can probably do both at the same time now. Personally, I can't wait to see how much, if any, of the skills that I've acquired in Season 1 have stuck around with me enough to go into Season 2. I know several of the classes, the casters in particular, have had their gameplay changed by a lot, so it'll be interesting to see how that's changed and how quickly I can adjust and learn new rotations. I'm hoping that I'll be able to climb much faster than I did last season, but it's also possible it might take longer, since I think the rating inflation might be a bit less. Well, I'll just have to see how it goes. If you enjoyed watching my drawing process and liked my art, I do have various social media accounts you can follow which are listed on screen. I know Twitter is slowly dying, but I'll just leave it up for now until I can find a suitable replacement. Thanks for watching!